Hype Network presents.
On this episode of season 4, let's talk.
Say you wanted to add, an inch to your biceps, or you wanted to increase your bench press. If you train for 6 months, that will increase, and that's you literally evolving as a person, as a human, physically and mentally. So yeah, I think if we're going back to what you've said, it's really just about the reason why the soreness was a bit of an addiction, because it's as a testament to the hard work you've put in, and yeah.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rajiv show. And guys, we are going international. The show keeps going international. At this point, I should be making a passport for my show. And we're going all the way to England. We also had an English guest on our 50th episode. So we're also gonna have another English guest, and my brother, a legend, a visionary that he is, Anthony Nwaneri. Hey pal, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing amazing, bud. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. Um, could you give a little bit of background about yourself aside from the glorious opening that I gave?
Yeah. So like Rashad just said there, I am from the UK. I'm actually currently in a place called Norfolk, in particular Kings Lynn. A lot of you you probably wouldn't have heard of it. It's one of those one of those places that when I'm out on a night out, or if I'm seeing a new group of people and I say to them I'm from Kings Lynn, they're like, where the hell is that? So I don't expect to know it. But that's where I'm from. I've lived in England. I was actually born in Nigeria, lived there for 6 years. Then I moved to England when I was obviously like 6. And yeah, spent most of my time in England. Just literally been now I'm at a point where I'm just like literally just working, trying to focus more on my career and where I want to be in the future. And that's literally where I'm up to now. Pretty not a crazy origin story. There's obviously a lot of detail that I missed out there, but that's essentially it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really want to open up that story, saying you've unboxed your biography there, and it felt like I can connect with you with that. But we'll talk about that later on. As usual, of course, for those who are listening, I always ask the usual question, which is, if you and I were classmates in high school, who were you in high school, pal?
Oh, so in all honesty, if I had to be completely objective, I would have to say I was probably a bit of a I'd say maybe I was a popular kid in high school, but I was maybe it could have got the perception that I was a bit of a douche, because I was a bit of a douche and I was a bit of a. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, sure.
But yes, I was maybe just a bit of a douche, or a bit of a dickhead, you could say. But yeah, that I was probably the hot polarized kid in school. That was a bit of a douche, was cheeky, misbehaved a lot, but I was also there. I was also a good kid. I didn't mean really any harm, but obviously, when you're going through high schools, can be a very confusing place, even though you're not very aware of it at that point in time.
Yeah. That's an interesting opening right there.
Yeah, is the truth, man. Is the truth.
Yeah. I gotta ask though, a follow-up question to that is, if you were to classify yourself in the tri categories of personality, you mentioned douche, which I'm taking your word for it, no offense, but well, how would you classify yourself in terms of the how would you classify yourself in the category of being introverted, extroverted, ambiverted, or even inverted? But where would you put yourself in that bracket?
What, right now or during high school?
High school.
So I think during high school, yeah, I was definitely extroverted, 100%. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was a big extrovert. I was very loud in class. I'd always get distracted. Was super cheeky. Would always have a good laugh with the teachers. And yeah, I was very, very, I was extremely comfortable in school. You know, some people have very bad experience of school, but I was in a position where I was well known. I got along with a lot of people, and school was not in a, not in like in a cocky or weird way, but just generally speaking, like I felt super comfortable in school,
Huh.
and I always felt in control. And there's not really a social situation that I felt awkward or didn't feel in control. So yeah, I was probably say I was very extroverted and very out there.
Interesting. Interesting. I want to connect your opening background in connection to high school, if you don't mind. You mentioned you grew up in
Of course.
Nigeria at the age of 6, and then from age of
Hmm.
6, and then I assume you also grew up in after the age of 6, you continued in England. Am I right?
Yeah, that's it. Correct. Yeah, that's it,
Interesting.
man. Yeah.
Uh,
Um.
what
Yeah.
was the first of all? What was the difference when I'm sure you also studied two schooling systems here. One is you mentioned Nigeria,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you also studied the lower the lower class, the beginning classes. The opening classes, first
Yeah.
grade or standard. I don't know what the word is. What was the difference when you
Hmm.
transitioned from Nigeria to saying what was the major difference when you went to England and you saw, oh, this is how schooling is, you know?
Oh man, the difference was insane. It was actually ridiculous how different it was. You know, even looking back now, I lived there till I was 6. I
Mm.
still have very fond memories of like distinct feeling of being in school and what that was like, the experience of that, and it was so different. So imagine if you had just a house. So from my understanding, from what I can remember, in
Mm.
Nigeria, the school was almost like this 3-story house that was semi-detached, but it was quite a small house,
Mm.
and then just each room in the house would have been a classroom. So in contrast, so just in terms of size, in contrast to like the primary schools we get over here,
Mm.
where it's much bigger and there's a bigger playground and a bigger play area. So
Mm.
that's much different. And then of course the actual the appearance of the school as well it wasn't really made properly. It was just like like concrete that wasn't actually painted properly. Like very wooden stools and old stools. Uh, just it wasn't complete and wasn't done. And in terms of the actual teaching, I remember, so imagine I was still 6, and I remember like when you get like homework or some work to do, and the way they discipline kids is if you didn't do your homework, you just need to get put in the front of the class. And I remember
Mm.
they would flog, which basically means they'll get a cane and hit you in the back
Ooh.
of the hand
Huh.
if you didn't get the question or didn't do your homework or get a question right.
Yeah.
So that aspect transitioning to obviously over here, where everything is just a lot more organized, and things are, you can't be hitting kids in in
Yeah.
school
Yeah.
at all. You get done for. So it's
Huh.
completely different in terms of that aspect. And but the shock itself, because obviously being black and being from Nigeria and then moving as an African to the UK and
Huh.
starting school there, it was different because around that time there wasn't a lot of black people in the area that I lived in
Okay.
at all. So I think I was the only black person within my school. So actually integrating and get myself into everything was so difficult, man. It was so difficult. I remember just like during like play times. I didn't really have anyone to play with. There might be like 1 or 2 people, but they weren't really friends.
Yeah.
This is just of course when I moved over, so
Yeah.
it was quite hard to integrate, and just the culture is a bit different. How you behave is a bit different. So yeah, well, it was definitely a big shock. Just honestly, man, everything it was insane. And of course, the weather was just the weather was just something else. So I'm coming from a place where on a normal day it might be like 37 degrees to here, where it's like you know um 12 degrees or less, or even like snowing. So that was a huge difference. I can really put my finger on just one thing. It was just a massive shock to my system.
Interesting. Interesting. I relate to you on this because I relate to you in the high school thing because I like the build up here because of the conversation. Um, for those who, of course, know my story, I grew up in the Philippines, and then from the age of 5, 2005, I went to India, and things things were much different. And that I connected with you in terms of culture shock, but mine was more different than the expectation prior to the thing. And I still remember
Yeah.
when you said we used to get caned in the hand. You used to get caned in the hand. We used to get caned in the knuckles. If
Mhm.
I could recall in high school, it was either you would do like the
Yeah.
sit-ups, you would do squats. You know, when you're being punished, you'll either do squats, and then sometimes you'll even be standing outside of the classroom. I remember that, but that was in high
Yeah.
school here in India when you missed out some homework, and then uh, you couldn't finish your homework. Usually standing out is more like you're chilling out in the. It's more like a thing. It's like a paradise
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
than a thing. But yeah, a short story about my life is that, yeah, like as mentioned, I grew up 5 years old. Um, I Here in the Philippines, it was much more different. And where I grew up, the system. There was an inbuilt system of education, but life was different because of the language, and then it was really really
Mhm.
different. And before I actually went to India, uh, I had this assumption. I don't know if I've mentioned this in any of my previous podcasts. If I haven't, then this is the first time you're hearing it. Is that I had this presumption of um, of what high school life was going to be in India. Granted that I'm a cinephile, and I love movies, and there are
Yeah.
days where
Yeah.
we watch American movies, so we kind of like believe, that's the standard of the educational system. Probably that'll be around the world. When I was coming to India, around 2006 or something, I was settling in already. I assumed that was going to be the system, the locker room, the bulletin boards, and
Yeah.
then, uh, but it was different. There was none of that was going on. That was the kind of funny part of it. So yeah, the expectation was
Yeah.
an epic fail.
It's not. It's not.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's not what it's made out to be in the movie.
yeah, but although the thing that I learned, uh, the thing that I couldn't really classify myself, even though I was young, and I have enough self awareness looking back at who I am when I was in high school, is that I was the guy who was getting picked on a lot, uh, and I had a
Mhm.
lot of problems um, that I've shared with you earlier in this conversation, before this conversation, where I was the weakling,
Mm.
and I didn't really have much friends because I don't know. I felt like I was the odd one person out. Um, and
Mhm.
there were like a lot of weird moments where sometimes uh, I could get away with things because my mom was in the same college, the same vicinity where where I was studying, but she was a teacher of the college
Yeah.
students. So I was protected, but when I got bullied, but there were moments that I just can't. And then when I went to India,
Yeah.
things changed. I mean, just like what you mentioned, the feeling of getting into a different world is like entering a new portal of a universe, and uh, the,
Mhm.
the culture and uh, the culture that I've seen, and the type of people and the type of languages, the type of philosophies, and all that stuff really blew my mind. And I'm just talking about the external. I'm talking about India in general, not about a high school. And when I
Mhm.
went to the high
Yeah.
school, by luck, my aunt was the teacher of. I think she's a teacher of biology. So, yeah, the same situation like
Wow.
mentioned with my mom. When I get bullied, I can get away with it
Yeah.
because my aunt is one of the instructors. But those are the things.
Mm.
The only difference though was in India, it was easier to express yourself to a certain degree, and uh, sometimes it's rare. Looking back at saying, it's rare that you can connect with great minds, and you can express yourself in so many ways, and and still never be judged by who you are, especially in the high school community, which is really, really, really fascinating. So that's a little bit of
Yeah.
me. I hope I didn't take up that much space, but yeah, that's saying introverted, extroverted. If I were to answer my own question, um, I'd probably be inverted because I can't really define I can't really define myself in any of those three categories.
Yeah. No. What classifies or what would qualify for a inverted? Is that just like you're not sure or?
Um, if I were to, I don't really know, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't like to brag to say that I'm special or anything of that sort. I mean, I got my thing. Growing up, I've always had a thing. And of course, I in our conversation, of course, I'm also going to ask you, what's your thing later on, in terms of contribution to society. Because for me, when I was young, this story is always in repeat in my head every time I get introduced. Is that when I was young, I had this knack for drawing. Drawing and all this fascination. The
Mm.
fascination of arts to me started when we
Yeah.
used. I don't know if you've done this as well. If you had a coin or a quarter or something, you put that you put that behind a paper, and then you
Oh,
start tracing it with a
a
pencil.
paper. I mean, you rob over it.
Yeah,
Yes, man. Of course.
that those were the
That's
times
yeah, that's
when,
crazy. You mentioned that.
yeah,
That's such a
that
fun
was
part.
the time when my fascination for arts began. But I don't really remember what circa that was. And I think that motivated me to just keep doing. And then I met when I was in high school. Uh, I remember there was this artist who I was exposed to the high school stuff during my high school stuff. I don't know if you grew up with the same channels, but we grew up with the same channels. I used to watch Ghostbusters Extreme. The Cartoon Network. Uh,
Yeah.
Ghostbusters. What's the other ones? Johnny Bravo. Looney Tunes.
Oh, I like Johnny Bravo. That's jokes.
The
Johnny
old
Bravo's jokes.
uh the old Tom and Jerry. I don't know if you remember the old Tom and Jerry, where you could see,
Yeah.
like, in the animation itself, you could distinctly see that it's hand drawn, and it's blood and sweat. Aside from, of course, the technology, Tom and
Yeah.
Jerry nowadays with the 3D and stuff, but uh, Tom and Jerry. And there was a time when I think there was the animated version. I don't know if it was Disney who was releasing these animation series, because I remember distinctively that there was this series called X-Men Evolution. Uh,
Yeah.
this
I
was
like that as well.
this was a cartoon that blew my mind, because as a child, you don't know what an X-Men is. You don't know the stories of what the real story is there. It's just you're in it for the action. It's like, okay, this guy's gonna punch this guy, is gonna
Yeah.
punch the villain, in the end of the day. And then I'm fascinated with the character Nightcrawler. Big fan of Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
And the and there was this time when I remember in Philippines, here in Philippines. uh I had a classmate who was, I call him a prodigy, because he, in one of our notebooks or one of our scrap thing, he just took a pen, and then he just scribbled, and then the outcome of it was like three characters. I think I remember it was Cyclops, Wolverine, and Nightcrawler. And they were the big three. They were the big main
Wow.
guys. And then, of course, he wrote the X-Men logo and everything. I was blown away from that. And then that's where my passion for arts, and there were times that I dabbled in crafts, but mostly it was the arts. That's where it began, the fire. And
Yeah.
once I started growing the fascination with the I started growing the fascination for that. I started folding up pieces of paper and then drawing it like as though it is going to be a laptop, because back then we used to have
Yeah.
the desktops, the big desktops. There were no laptops and all that stuff,
Mm.
so we used to fold like a whole piece of paper, and and then we fold it into four pieces, and then we design it like a very thin apple fold or something like that. you know it is.
Yeah.
And then we draw,
Uh,
we draw the desktop, we draw the screen, and then we draw the keyboard. We try to imitate the keyboards that we have in the desktops or the computers. And then we just imagine like as though there's gonna be our phone or something. And I remember I had a classmate where
yeah.
we used to compete, like my laptop's better than yours and your laptop's better than me. And then, and then we, those kind of stuff. And it was really fun. It was really really
Yeah.
fun to experiment with that stuff. And things got serious once I was exposed to the idea of comics. But for me, my my fascination for that began with, I was not really tech. To me, I'll be real, is that I'm not the technically gifted anatomy drawing that if you show me an anatomy of this, and then
No.
I can pinpoint and then correct the artwork and all that. I'm not that kind of prodigal stuff, but my fascination grew like that. It developed, and like I said, from scratching
Yeah.
coins, scratching coins from behind, and then building that into uh, imagining laptops, like foldable laptops. To that, that's where I stuck to my thing through and through. I've been doing stick figure drawings. And I don't know the reason why I think I classify myself as inverted is the way I think, because um,
Mhm.
oftentimes when I do things, I don't know, earlier on when I do things, I don't think it just I just do it. When I started, when I discovered that you can put coins, someone did it and then I just did it, and and then someone else did something, and then of course that's what led my fascination for arts. And yeah, it grew. I mean, even till today, I think I still have a copy of one of my two of my comic books, or three or four comic books. There is a comic book that I remember distinctively that I did by the year of 2008. uh, and by the starting of the
Wow.
year, I remember, yeah, it had major conflicts with my grades at that time, which is the funny story. But I remember starting the comic book because I finished the season. I'm not really a storyteller at that time, but I was just experimenting, and then my storytelling was spontaneous, whatever came to my head at the moment, and then I just add that and then put it into storytelling. I didn't even know about uh, heroes heroes journey and all that stuff. So I took this challenge of creating a comic book that is 100 page. That was actually my challenge. I think it was 100 page comic book. So it was more of the landscape type of comic book. So it was a couple of
Yeah.
bond papers, uh, folded together, stapled, and all that creative stuff. And then I made sure it was 100 pages. And then I did that, I think, throughout the entire school year, or that entire year, if I could recall. And I finished it by the end of the year. I mean, I remember the victory lap that I had. But I haven't shared the story, which is interesting. I remember the victory celebration that I had once I accomplished my comic, because once I was finishing that up, I remember it was 5 a.m. in the morning, and at that time I didn't even have the Apple Android stuff. So I had a phone that had the built-in radio, and I had some headphones and stuff like that. And right after I
Oh,
was done, I was just waiting for the sun to come up, and it was 5 a.m. in the morning. It was really fun. I was staring outside the window, and then yeah. But yeah, that was so that's where my love for arts began. And it's still
wow.
I still have the fascination for arts with anything I do. I have to make sure that I try my best to be as perfectionist in terms of execution, because I think that is where that's
Yeah.
where my weakness is. But that's also the case of an artist. Sometimes you get things wrong, and most of the time I get a lot of things wrong, especially uh, uh, majority of the stuff that I do with graphic designs. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my story and my fascination for arts. I want to ask you, pal,
That was
high
awesome.
school, high
Yeah.
school and college. I'm sure when you came to England, or you came to UK, to the UK. Um, where
Yeah. UK.
when you joined stuff, were you also? I wanted to ask this actually. Usually, I ask this to a lot of my guests. Is that are you a competitive type of personality when it comes to sports and stuff like that? I mean, of course, extroverted.
Yes. Yes. I was.
And what's your
Yeah.
your
I was
favorite
very very
sport? What was your favorite sport of all?
My favorite sport playing in high school would have been rugby. I love rugby. It was so fun because when I was in high school, I was quite fast. So from the point when I was like 11, yeah, from the point when I was like maybe like 9 till 16, yeah,
Yeah.
through high school I was very very fast. So I loved rugby, and I started going to the gym when I was around like 13, 14. So I had a bit more size. So I was super fun. I absolutely loved it, and I was very very competitive with it as well. Um, yeah, well, it was great fun really. And I remember one time, there's this me and my other friend
Mm.
who we would never get put in a team together because we were um yeah, we just never get put in a team together because it was quite strange because we were, one was team captain,
Mm.
and the other one was just one of those guys that just good at every sport. So he was one of them, and I remember even though we were so close friends, we would never get put together just for that reason, which is so frustrating. But yeah, so to answer your question, I was very very competitive.
Wow, rugby and gym. That you just opened up another two Pandora's box. I gotta ask. Wow, I don't want to mess with you now. Coming to think of it, when you said gym and rugby, the first thought in my head is, I hope when I meet this guy, I need to make sure that I need to buff up a little bit because I'm a skinny guy. Probably you're gonna give me
No,
that
no
hug,
need. I mean,
that bully hug where you
no, I
scratch
mean,
my head.
yeah, no, the gym was a huge part of my life. Like, and I say it's becoming slowly again. It's coming back into my life. But let's say for the last yeah, so basically for the last 9 years, yeah, close to 9 years or 8 years, I was going to the gym consistently from the age of um yeah, from the age of 13. I started hitting the gym, started going to the gym, started training, and it just became a massive obsession of mine. Like, I loved it, and I just wanted
Mm,
to be the biggest in my year, so like no one could compare me. So I wanted to basically be the biggest in my age group and the one who had the biggest muscles. And I had my older brother who had a lot of muscle as well. So I was looking up to him, really working hard. I remember, like, after school, that's all I would do. So after school, I would get my stuff, get my bag, and I'd go straight to the gym, training by myself or with a friend. It
mm,
didn't really matter for me. During the weekend, the same thing. And I remember it was so much of an obsession that most of my friends, when it'll be the holiday, they'll be playing football, and I'll be at the gym just because I had this goal and this painting in my mind that I really wanted to create.
mm,
And the gym it played a huge part of my life, really growing up, and helped a lot of my confidence. Um, and really just taught me what I'm actually capable of, because by you going to the gym by default is such a good way to develop yourself as a person, physically and mentally. And it shows you that you can create something in your mind first, and then by hard work, by taking action, you can manifest your goals into reality in a weird way. But yeah, no, the gym was a huge part of my childhood. And then I stopped for quite a while, so I stopped going to the gym for the last, maybe after during COVID, I didn't to go to the gym, but even before COVID, I pretty much wasn't as committed because I wanted a long break. I wanted to get into business more,
yeah,
and the gym took up too much real estate in my mind.
yeah,
Um, so if I wanted to, commit to my business and being an entrepreneur, then the real estate in terms of being obsessed with the gym had to be dropped.
yeah.
So yeah, but now, because I've had like a year and 6 months, pretty much not really going consistently at the gym. I'm now getting that itch again to really get back training and get back working hard with it. So yeah.
I love how you philosophize working out. I didn't really expect that right off the bat. That was really, I mean, wow.
Yeah,
That
man. Yeah, it,
you
it,
you're a
it's
really
deep,
deep
bro.
person. That's really a deep.
Yeah,
That's a deep thought, and I love connecting with people of that caliber because sometimes conversations nowadays are become less saturated and oversimplified. I like those thoughts where
yeah,
conversation. This is one thing I love about human beings, but especially people that I could connect with, is that I love people who
yeah,
have this sense of questioning everything, and by the end of the conversation, at some point, you go back home, and then you're having that conversation with yourself. Yeah, maybe what he said in this half of this conversation was good, and then it's like you're debating with yourself because of the points that you
yeah,
proved.
yeah.
It's really really fascinating. I love your energy. I love your vibe here, and I love this conversation.
Thank you very much.
But before we transition to the business that you mentioned, um, I also my fascination of gym came at the experience of it. But of course, before that, like before joining the gym, um, I want to share this
Yeah.
because since you mentioned gym and sports, um, I like I said, I mentioned I'm a skinny guy. I mean, probably if you were to meet me, you can pack me up in a suitcase and then throw me up like one of those guys with luggage, throw it in the airport and all that stuff. You don't need to pay for the ticket. You can just be in the luggage, right? The stuff you can just pack me up. And earlier on, well, this was during my lost years, and the reason why I'm specifying this is there is there was a time where I had this intimidation, and
Mhm.
then it was the intimidation. I had this that was the first thought in my head when I joined. Actually, was that I was really really scared because
Yeah.
the what ifs. What did the big guys bump into me and all that stuff. Those were I used to overthink this, and then I remember because I was with my dad
Yeah.
at the time um where you know it- when my dad said you guys just go, don't think about it, just go and all that stuff. And then I often thought, why not, let's try this, why not? And then the first time I hit the weights, as usual, when you start out, you start out with those light weights, at first, it's like, why are
Yeah.
you giving me this? The ego kind of thing kicks in the first week. But
Mhm.
the first day is, it's humble, honest. You just go into that, you know, instructor is gonna give you do bench press, the basic stuff,
Mm.
bench press, pull ups, and all these whatnots, and then yeah, and then
Yeah.
the very next day, I kind of, it's kind of weird, but I kind of enjoyed the the delay onset muscles, or the DOMs, as they say, which is really
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. And I think that
Yeah.
became like
Yeah.
my addiction after some time when that thing started leaving my body. I kind of yearned. I was
Yeah.
kind of obsessed to sing, and then eventually, of course, I had to wisen up because um, it, I think earlier on, of course, when you join the gym, I don't know if you've had this experience. It's more about, when this guy is lifting 500 pounds, and then you don't even know what the action is. You don't even know what the
Yeah.
muscle you're hitting. You want to go there and then say,
Yeah.
let me try this out. I want to see this guy's big.
Yeah.
Let's play.
100%.
Yeah. And those are the moments. So then I had to wisen up. I had to do research, and then I learned it was mostly, uh, FYI learning. It was, the best teacher of all was YouTube.
Yeah.
I studied in the YouTube University. I should have a T-shirt like that.
100%.
So I
I feel the
subscribe.
same way.
I subscribe to the big guys, Athlenex and all that stuff, and then they said this is the muscle that you need to learn, and then when you're lifting, you have to learn the there's a purpose to what you're lifting, or specified goal, and then I had to wisen up.
Mm.
The more I wisen up, yes, I could admit there were like a lot of stupid moments where thing, but then where there's stupidity, there's experience. I'm sure that you agree with that, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was fun, but that um, chasing the dragon feeling that I have for chasing the dragon feeling that I have for that, that pain. It was kind of, it sounds weird the way
Mm.
I'm saying it to myself, is that I chased pain. It's kind of weird, but it's true to myself that I really do. I do really miss that,
It's true.
especially.
Well,
Yeah, yeah, you're saying.
no, 100%, man. Yeah, no, like with the gym, that is what it is. It's a strange, it's a very strange like space that you go into. Like for me, I was the exact same where the pain felt nice because I think it's just more so the pain feels nice because there's a sense of accomplishment. You
Yeah.
feel like you've done the work that you're meant to be doing. You've actually put in the hours, you've put in the reps,
Mm.
you dedicate yourself to the gym. And I think the gym, for anyone. So if you're listening right now, if you don't believe in manifestation, or if you have self confidence, I would highly recommend going to the gym because you have proof, clear proof of what you're capable of, and not in terms of what the other guy's capable of, but in terms of you set yourself a goal and you're able to hit that goal 100% if you devote yourself to that. And I
Yeah.
think because I started so early on with the gym, I was able to set big goals,
Yeah.
accomplish them just through hard work, perseverance, and it taught me a lot about sacrifice, and if you have huge goals, what's required for you to give up to attain those goals.
Yeah.
And just doing that through repetition over and over again, I begin to, like I said, that's how we create this philosophy. I begin to realize, holy crap, like I can actually do anything. And I
Yeah.
think the gym is the perfect representation of that, because say you wanted to add an inch to your biceps,
Yeah.
or you wanted to increase your bench press. If you train for 6 months, that will increase, and that's you
Mm.
literally evolving as a person, as a human, physically and mentally. So yeah, I think if going back to what you've said, is really just about the reason why the soreness was a bit of an addiction, because it's as a testament to the hard work you've put in.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. So it
And
makes sense, and I was the exact same way. I used to love it. I didn't like the leg there. Some of them I didn't like, but I didn't like my legs always aching. But even then, it was a weird satisfaction because you're
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I can barely walk, but this feels nice. I feel like I've done something. And then it gets to the point when when you've been lifting for so long and working out for so long that the DOMs aren't as heavy, or they're not
Yeah.
as painful,
Yeah.
and you feel like you're not doing enough work. So that's a weird thing about it. When you don't get it, even though it's pain, when you're not in pain, you feel like I haven't done enough.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Something is lacking and all that stuff. I do agree with that. But before we get into the break, I actually wanted to share a funny story of leg day. This was, I don't know when the story thing was, but I could recall this as though it was yesterday, because everything that I do remember is almost yesterday. um,
Yeah.
there was this instance where once I started building that obsession, around 2009 or something. That was my first visit, if I could recall. Yeah, either 2009, 2008. I visited the Philippines for at least a month, and then I was still in that that gym phase. I need to have the gym phase kind of thing. So I was looking
Mhm.
for gyms that were nearby the city at that time, and then I found this gym um, somewhere near the marketplace, with just a couple of miles from the marketplace, just walking distance. And then um, the beauty about this gym is it's 3 floors. I don't know how the system of floor, how you guys read the floors, is that the way I see it was, you got the ground floor, you got the first floor, and I think it's the second floor. And usually here in the Philippines, they call it the first floor as the ground floor, so it's like the third floor. I hope that makes sense. So
Yeah.
on the third floor, on the second floor that I'm explaining, I remember I did legs, and I went to this gym that was much further from home. And then I remember, I remember right after that the exercise and everything. I think my mom, my mom wanted me to go meet my cousins and stuff like that, and their place is right off the mountain. So this was the funny part of all of that, is that the previous day before
Yeah.
we went and met the folks and said hello to each other. I could recall that I was kind of regretful having the leg day because at that time transportation, I think transportation, the cars could not go up the mountain, so we had to park it somewhere in a certain level where it's easier to get out the car and all that stuff. And then we had to climb the thing. It
Yeah.
was like 45 degrees up, so basically right after leg day it was like you were still doing lunges. That was how hard it was to climb that mountain. It was the experience going
Aw,
upwards was hell, to be honest. If I were to simplify it in a context
wow.
of just one word, it was hell. um because that day the previous day, I did everything, lunches, squats, you name it, I
Yeah.
did it. And I had to put in the work the previous day, or it was the day, I don't really
Yeah.
remember exactly what the day was, but yeah. And then and then that was just it was crazy, I swear. It was one of the those worst experience, because the enjoyment that I enjoyed was walking back down, because it was like you were skateboarding a ramp that was going downwards. That was much more easier. But
Yeah.
then controlling your balance, because the thing,
Oh,
when
I
you're going up, you're lunging, especially, mostly, yes, you're lunging, you're lifting the ankles and all the stuff, you're tiptoeing as well when you're switching from leg to leg,
mm.
from saying, I'm sorry if I was getting technical with the science. But yeah, that was like, that was one of the worst experience. That was the worst experience. That's why I often wish that, if I could simplify the legs, I'd try my best. But yeah, nowadays also I do
Oh,
miss I miss the thing. I miss the ego whipping, or I don't know if what they call that in the gym etiquette, because in the
ego
gym,
lifting.
no, not ego lifting, it's like ego whipping against someone else, patting someone in the back, getting those challenges,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I call it
I hear
ego
you.
whipping, because you're whipping someone's ego.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
um I miss the camaraderie, especially when you're lifting with gentlemen, because it's not just for me personally. My philosophy is, I do agree with absolutely everything that you mentioned, training, discipline, and everything. But especially once you get to connect with people on that caliber, and then you know um, they show this sense of obsessiveness. It's kind
Mhm.
of like an infectious thing, where I'm sure you and I would agree, is that if 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 you and I are in the same room, and then let's just say there's a guy who has this positive, laughing energy, who's just bubbling inside, and talkative, going around and saying hello to everybody. I'm sure everybody in that room will be infected by that, positivity. Although some will
Yeah.
probably not change, or some would have that stoic mentality, but deep down inside, they have that, this guy's positive. That's the thing that I miss, and
Mhm.
that obsessiveness. Like, you see them bench pressing, and that obsessiveness, and then once they get off that stuff, they start screaming, and then, oh man, it should have gone for one more rep. Those kind of things. It makes you
Yeah.
think like, wow, I missed that. But if there's a will, there's a way. We Nowadays, it's all home equipment. You could pick it up by the flick of a button. You can pick up some weights, a shop nearby, or online
Yeah.
store, and all that stuff. So at least I still made a way to keep myself productive, which is saying. But yeah, I never thought this conversation would lead to saying gym.
Neither really.
So of course, we're gonna before after the break, we're gonna talk about the stuff that you mentioned. You mentioned business, you mentioned entrepreneurship. I want to talk about that as well. And I presume that
Awesome.
we're gonna share a lot of information about some good stuff on saying But before we talk about that, of course, folks, we will be right back after these few short messages.
Catch the Pizarro Tales weekly as we tackle issues about education and share experiences about teaching. Hosted by Jay Australia, available on your favorite podcast platforms.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the show. Again, we are here international. I feel like I'm in the UK because I'm talking to a brother that connected with me, and I felt like we had a parallel life, but it was much more different of an experience. And if you haven't heard the first half, guys, go check out the first half. There's a lot of interesting stuff to learn there. And before the break, I think I remember we opened the conversation to entrepreneurship, but we were talking about gym life and gym obsession. Pal, I gotta ask you, transitioning from gym to sing, all the stuff that you learned in the gym, did you manage to transition the discipline, the training, the work ethic when you started your own business? That I hope that was a good opening for a business conversation here.
No, that was perfect. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I think so. I think it's strange though because the transition it wasn't as evident to me. Like I went to the gym and I knew I was really good with the gym, and it taught me about, I was capable to do anything I set my mind to in terms of that, and in terms of like school, work, and university, I had the same sort of mentality that I could do whatever I wanted to do as long as I put my mind to it. And I never, in school, I was never the guy to worry about exams because I always knew that I was gonna do well. Like I didn't think I was gonna do like get an A star, but I knew I didn't have anything to worry about because I knew I was never gonna go into an exam and fail because I just prepare. Like if you prepare properly, you do the revision, you haven't got to worry. And I've never, thankfully, ever had a worry that like I'm ever going to fail an exam, unless I was like super underprepared for like an assessment. But exams, when it comes down to it, I knew that I could always pull out the bag, sort of thing. But so I translated that mentality to my university work and uni work, and then eventually came third year. So went through first year, second year, third year, and then I decided to drop out of university and really focus on just entrepreneur stuff. And the transition was difficult, but it was also good because I had that mentality, I had that work ethic. But it was more so, I mentioned to you earlier that going to the gym took up a lot of mental real estate. And what I mean by that is when you're working hard and at the gym, you're constantly obsessed about it. You think about it, you breathe it, you visualize yourself at the gym subconsciously. So you having to transfer all that data for the last 7 to 8 years, and transfer that over to the gym was something that took some time, but and it's still a work in progress. But I do think that I am working extremely hard, and I'm very proud of myself, to be fair, with what I've been able to accomplish. But I'm also very aware that I've got a very, 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 very long way to go. And the same mentality where with the gym, you're not going to instantly become massive, or you're not going to instantly be the strongest guy at the gym. You have to have a long-term mindset, know that your goals will take time. So that trained me when now being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, it trains me to accept that I'm going to have to go through a lot of strenuous hard work, a lot of tedious work, and I'm not going to get rewarded for the next 6 months, potentially a year, for my hard work. So just strangely for that, really, I think the gym has definitely trained me to think a lot more long term and recognize that delayed gratification is a thing. I just have to keep myself focused, try to keep myself present, which isn't always the easiest thing, but just knowing that it will come, and things are going your way, even if it feels kind of bad. You are going to get your downs and your ups and and your peaks and your valleys, but just pushing through that, pushing through the pain, and actually recognizing that your character is being built because of because of the setbacks, because of the pain you go through. So that's definitely helped me tremendously. And then another thing's of course I mentioned to you, with the gym, how I got to a point where I was obsessed, and to a point where I was manifesting how I wanted to look. It's one of those things where I had to visualize when I was at the gym. So when I was at the gym working out, I was never in my body. I was always the person that I was always the person that I was working out to become. So it wasn't like I was working out to become this person. When I was in the gym, I was that person working out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's same
Very
with like,
definitive.
translate
Yeah.
that to business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and translate that to business and work is now
Mm.
trying to translate that more so and recognize that I'm working now not as who I am now, but as the business owner who's got a successful publishing brand, who's helping, who's providing a ton of value to the community, and having that mentality and having visualizing that makes you act, makes me act rather in a different way. So for example, like I can't procrastinate as much because I know that that future me wouldn't procrastinate as much. So when I have the mentality that I am that person, well, that person has certain rules and standards he needs to follow. Same way, if I'm at the gym and I want to be the biggest guy there, I
Yeah.
have to do that extra set, I have to do that extra rep, I have to work out harder than everyone else.
Yeah.
And that translated in my physical appearance down the line. And same goes with, I'm trying to use that now. I'm trying to master that now with the business, where I'm trying to visualize in my head certain things coming my way. I'm trying to visualize, how I would behave on a day-to-day basis. I'm trying to visualize my pattern, and it's hard, and it's very, very hard, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. But like I said, it's something that I'm willing to devote myself to, and I'm willing to do the tedious work now for the next year, 2 years, however long it needs to be, because I know that in 10 years time, in 15 years time, in 20 years time, I'm thankfully will be in a fortunate position where the skills that I've acquired just means that I'm not going to be relying on anyone else, and I can generate money at will. So that's that, back to your point really. So visualization and being able to actually visualize who I am, who I want to be, how I behave in terms of my business and the standards I hold myself to, I was able to translate because of bodybuilding and because going to the gym. And then having the long-term mindset, knowing that if you're setting a very high goal, that requires large amount of action to get those large amounts of results. So I would need to also translate the long-term mindset and the work ethic that I had from the gym to business. And like I said, it's every day is different, and you're just constantly trying to adapt, constantly trying to learn, but more so applying. And it's just time. The only thing that you have to think about is time. And a lot of people with business, or all human beings, we have a natural tendency to not really look forward to the future. And I used to be the same way when I was going through sixth form. So when I was 16 to 18, it was a very weird stage in my life because I didn't really know what I wanted to do as a career path. I was just in such a weird stage because at that point my sister had gone off to university and my brother had gone off to university, and that's the first time ever I've been by myself in my house. And it was very, very strange because you get pulled in all these different directions. And I remember around that time I couldn't see a future, so it was really hard and it was really difficult because I wasn't working towards anything. The thought of time passing by put me off, and because it was it was horrible. It was like when you feel like you haven't got direction and know where you're going. But no, I always knew I wanted to do something great, and I always knew I wanted to become a really successful businessman, but had lack of direction, and it'll put me off. But then eventually when I did find out what I wanted to do, it gave me clarity. So for example, like having a goal like with the gym gave me clarity because I was working towards the future. And then from that, after I gave up the gym, I then created another goal for myself with my publishing business, and wanted to create something amazing, something that changed the dynamic of the podcasting space. And to me, I'm looking forward to the future, and I'm glad time is happening because I know I'm putting the work in, and just over time I'm going to reach to my destination. So if anything, I wish time would speed up, but that's just because obviously at the moment I'm using my time well. So yeah,
that's powerful. I mean, I love the philosophy there, but I'm just curious because in the world of storytelling, in the world of self-improvement, I love stories, and I'm a visual person, and I do agree. I mean, 100%, I do agree with your statement about envisioning yourself. If you're in that specific space, in that specific head time, you are the person that you're working for. And it's like the way I see it, the way I envision this is that it's kind of like a astral projection of you looking at a future version of yourself. I don't this really makes me weird, Cookie, but a future version of yourself that you can see, that it's either in the it's depending on where you envision this, you can see it in the mirror, or you can see it anywhere, you can see it, and then that is what I want, and that's what I want to achieve. So that's like that's how I envisioned what you said, and the philosophies that followed. I do agree 110%. I want to follow up this one with a question. I hope you don't mind, pal.
Yeah, of course.
And the question is, you mentioned earlier also that you dropped out university. We call it college. I'm kind of used to
Yeah.
the American terms, but I'm gonna go England as well. You said you dropped out university to pursue entrepreneurship. What was the storytelling there? What was the
Yes.
mindset, and what was going? I actually wanna, if there was a particular moment where you were walking down the stairs and then epiphany hit you, or you saw someone broke up in the thing, or someone broke up outside in front of the, you know, what was the story? What is the storytelling on that pivotal moment where you transitioned and said, okay, this is not the life that I want. I want to make a life of my own. So what was that? What was the moment there?
Yeah, no. So we'll have to just backtrack quickly. So the course that I was doing was sports science, and it was a 3-year course at university. Before I went to university, I said to one of my friends, one of my closest friends, Kian, mentioned to him, yeah, you know what, mate, I wouldn't actually be surprised. I'll be surprised if I make it out of university without dropping out. And I just said that, like, I didn't have any thought of it. And it wasn't like I was going to university to drop out. It's just the idea of that I don't know. I just said that for whatever reason. So that was before I went to university. Went to university in first year, wrote my goals down. And the reason I went to university was really more to discover what my actual purpose was, what I actually wanted to do. Because I didn't know what that business was going to be. I didn't know how I was going to make the amount of money that I envisioned in my mind of making. I just knew that I had something in me that was saying, like, you can do it. It's just you have to go out and find it actively. So went to university first year in sports science. It went well, went great. I remember the first day at university, they give us a piece of paper, put it in front of us, and it says, where would you like to be at the end of third year? So before you graduate, where would you like to be? And I remember writing down, I want to have my own online business, making money online. I remember writing that clear as day. And then, fast forward the first year, me and my friend just dabbled in a few things, but nothing really worked out. Did a bit of drop shipping and did a bit of and this nearly got into this pyramid scheme, funny enough, but we thankfully we weren't able to get into it because we didn't realize it was a pyramid scheme, by the way. We just basically were young, we were deluded, and we sold this dream. But anyway, skip that. And then second year came along, and at this point I was a bit like, why am I at university? And it's probably good to mention that my friend, who's now my business partner, Tig, he also went to university with me as well. He went to university studying maths, and then he gave up maths to do music, which was his passion. So I thought that was really cool, and I thought that was super inspiring. Went into second year, and when lockdown happened in it was April last year. April last year. I remember at that point I was really thinking, why am I at university? This doesn't seem right. Like, I want to be a business owner. My course was just choresome. And I remember calling my friend in April one evening saying, yo, bro, I feel like I'm just wasting my time at university. Like, my heart's not in it. I didn't care about it. I'm not there feeling like this is amazing. I want to learn. And I'm always a person who always tells people, chase after your passion, do what makes you happy. I've always been that guy. So for me to be in a predicament where, I'm a situation where I don't think I'm enjoying my university, it's not going great. And I remember that evening after I called him, I prayed it was April. I remember midnight on the dot, I was praying to God and the universe, and I was praying, begging to God, saying, like, God, please, currently I've got no direction at all. I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to do great things. Please, God, just give me any direction at all, and I will listen. And anything, just show me something, because I know that I'm meant to be here to do something great and wonderful and amazing. But for whatever reason, I'm just, I just can't figure out by myself. I just needed help. I remember just being like, so torn with this because it's a big decision, isn't it? Like if you're gonna break up or not, what you want to do with your life. I remember that was the breaking point, and imagine this, bro. After I prayed, I went on YouTube to type in some law of attraction motivational video, listened to the first one, and then an ad played at the end of the first, which was essentially this guy saying, hey, you know, there's this new business model online, and no, you're probably a bit skeptical, but honestly, I promise you, it's going to be something that blows you away and you haven't heard of it before. And no skip ads straight away, but this, for whatever reason, it just caught my attention, caught my eye, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's just take a look. Listen to it. An hour and a half later, it's like, you know, nearly 2 now, and I'm in this webinar that's been going on, explaining to me what this business model is, publishing, how it works, how to make money from it. And the next day, I ring my friend Tig, and my friend I went to university with, ring him, and I was like, bro, this is something sick that we need to get into right now. It looks so, let's get into it right now. And then the next day, we had both of our savings. We literally invested £1,000 on this online course. And that's how I got introduced to the world of publishing. And then, you know, fast forward, I went to university. So I still didn't drop out of university. I was still doing my work. And so during April, after we bought the course, we started the course, but I was still at university. So I was doing my work, you know, I'd wake up at 7 and I would do my work throughout the afternoon, and then later on I'd work on the publishing course and the publishing business, and that happened throughout till July. And then July finished, university finished, and then I was able to devote myself to our book, so to Podcast and Made Simple, which we then launched in October.
I remember.
But anyway, so when I went back to university 3rd year, it was such a weird thing because I knew I already had this publishing thing that I really wanted to do, but the whole thought of dropping out of university still intimidated me, still scared me, and still sort of like worried me. There was a lot of anxiety around it. And then I remember, so at this point I was full sweat mode, and when I say full sweat mode, I remember I would wake up at 7 at university because I was still doing my work, and I'll go to the library from 9 till 6, and then from 6 till the evening time, late evening, I'll be working on the business. And that was consistent, like I was doing that consistently. But it got to a point, you know, I think it was like 2 months in, where I was just sort of like, what am I doing? Putting so much energy, so much time, waking up so early, going out walking for a course I don't really care about, and a course I know I'm not going to use. And I'm not saying that it was useless. I'm saying for me personally, I was never going to use sports science in any way, the degree, in any way, shape or form. So it seemed idiotic and backwards for me to still be at university. So I was having these conflicting thoughts, like, why am I spending my time in all this stuff when I know what I want to do? I found my path, I know, and I knew, you know, publishing was what I needed to do. That's what I love doing, that's what I enjoy doing, that's what I love learning about. And it was just torn. It was just this weird thing in my head. I was like, why would I be at university? It seems so stupid. But anyways, I remember one evening I was again the same situation with, like, you know, feeling really weird and just conflicted and not knowing what to do. And I remember asking God once again, praying outside. So imagine I'm at the top floor and I have like a rooftop, and it's like you could open this like
terrace,
window kind of, and you could see like the skyline.
Wow.
Yeah. And I opened that up and I'm looking and I'm praying to God, saying, you know, God, please, all I want is some direction. I'm thinking about leaving university, but I don't know if that's the right decision. I just want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. Please just give me some direction. Like, I know in my heart what I need to do, but, you know, I don't know. Like, this decision just seems so monumental in my head. And I asked him, how much money will I need to make sure this business does well? What do I need to do? You know, what would, you know, one how I mentioned to you, the twins. So the people who sold the course to me are twins. And I was like, I wonder what they would do if they were in my situation. I was like, I would love to know if I could speak to them privately about what they would do if they were in my situation. But obviously, like, they're busy people, and I didn't expect that to happen. I would then pray that, got on my bed. Before I went to bed, I just went on one of their Facebook profiles and flicked through the old pictures, and then I saw this old video, and it said how I went from loser to, you know, like from loser to success or something like that. And it then it was pretty much a video of the twins, the people who saw the course, an old video of theirs, explaining that they dropped out of university and explaining how they were thinking, why this is so stupid, why I'm at university when I know what I want to do. And they were like, they just quit university, even though, so bearing in mind, I was in third year. So 2.5 years of my life has gone into university at this point. And I was like, I'm so close. Why don't I just finish it? And they said the same thing. They said that they were like 90% of the way there, and people were saying to them to stick around. It didn't feel right in their head, so they decided to drop out. So when I watched that video, and they were like, yeah, it was just stupid. Like, like, why would I stay at university when I know that's not what I want to do? That's not actually, education in some sense, depending on what course you're doing, especially if you want to get into business. And I was just like, as soon as I watched that video, I swear to God, instantly, because it's like God answered my prayers. I got to speak to the twins, and it felt like a special message to me. And it was like an instant reply. That's the second time it's happened, an instant reply. And at that point, I won't ever forget it. It was like around this point, it was like maybe like, I think it was like maybe like 3-ish, 4-ish. Yeah. And my girlfriend was coming over to visit me the next day. I remember clear as day, at that point, I was like, yeah, I'm dropping out of university. And that was it. That was just it. That, like, I just knew at that point, like, that's it. There's no one can ever tell me otherwise. Like, if you pray to God in the universe and you get an instant answer, you better do yourself a service and listen and take the answer you're being given, because you'd be idiotic otherwise. And that was it. And then, at that moment, I was like, yeah, I'm dropping out of university. That's it. Made up my mind then and there. Nothing would ever change it, and nothing did ever change it. And and that was probably the best decision I think I've ever made in my life. And that's it. I'm sure. Just that's literally that was the moment that it just all changed. The next morning, I felt just this weird energy, like it literally felt like the universe shifted at that point. Like I know it sounds like, if you're listening to this, you're not really into like manifestation, or you're not into all the law of attraction, or quantum stuff, or all that sort of stuff. Like it's just a fact. If you make a decision, every decision you make creates a new reality. That's just a fact. And depending on the significance of the decision, depends on how the trajectory that how significant the change of the trajectory of your life will be. So like, if you make a decision to not eat a sandwich today, that's not going to make that big of a difference in your life. But if you made the decision to drive to see an old friend, or travel to see an old friend on that day, that will make a significant difference potentially on your life. Loads of different possibilities opened up. You could potentially, God forbid, something could happen bad on the trip, something could happen good on the trip. So yeah, one of those decisions where when I made that decision, I quite literally felt a shift in my paradigm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do.
So, and after I mentioned about the gym, how I gave up real estate because I wanted to commit to business. I couldn't be obsessed with the gym. Yeah. So I decided to give up the gym because I wanted to have more data to absorb business. And then when I was at university, most of my time was 70% of my time was working on university and stuff I didn't care about. So you can imagine that I was thinking, well, why am I taking up so much mental space in my mind doing work I didn't care about? This just seems so backwards. No way. I feel like I'm being like, no.
Trade-off.
So that's another reason why decision that I was like, I need to get rid of this mental real estate that's not going to serve me and the future that I'm trying to create. And I'm just going to fully commit in this thing that's constantly in my head that I care about. And that's it. And that's here we are,
Powerful. It's
here
powerful.
We are, 8 months later.
This is really powerful because if I can relate this to my feelings, if I could relate this to the story that I told you about being in the gym, I think it was the similar experience, but for me it was more of the feeling of realizing that you're there in that moment. Because the way I feel it, the way I heard it, it was the same feelings, to be honest. It was the same feeling, but not the same storyline. When I started the gym workout, I mean, there were countless hours, countless nights I sit down with my dad saying, tomorrow I'm going to the gym. and then tomorrow I'm going to the gym. It's like it's like I'm trying to at some point it's like, am I trying to con myself into believing that I'm going to the gym at some point in my life? And then finally when I took that thing and I
Yeah.
took the oath, and then I took the oath to myself and I said, I'm gonna go to the gym. And then I went to the gym, and nobody gave a shit about me. To be honest, nobody gave a shit about me. I was scrawny. Yes, I was scrawny. I was thinking someone would elbow me in the eye while doing bicep curls or something, but none of it happened because everybody had their business. And that moment when you take that, I feel I was actually there in that moment with you when you woke up and you realized that sense of, okay, I'm here, what's next, kind of situation. I kind of have that, like, I'm there. Of course, for me, when I learned, I was paying attention to, okay, I have to put this is how I put the weights, this is how what I need to do, these are the basics. The guy was there, the coach was there telling me, okay, this is what you got to do, that's what you got to do, everything, bada bum. And then, and then he left me after that. It's funny, after the first set of DOMs, he left me. It's like, you do your thing, I already gave you the basics, you just do the basics, put it up. And then he didn't even tell me what month he didn't. And then all of it was like analytic, like what you did. You went to the University of YouTube, where you didn't even pay a tuition fee. And then I just went there. And then the coach Jeff Cavalier gave me the information. And then there were some few guys who were crappy, but giving crappy information, which some of it worked, some of it didn't work. But as starting out, that's the normal thing, that you are,
Yeah.
when you're entering a different realm, you are the dumbest person, but you're also the smartest person in the world, because you're getting this. Yes, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, I'm getting this. It's just how you collect the data and the information is up to you. So that very,
Yeah.
very powerful. I'm really blown away, and I'm proud of the fact that you've taken the initiative, which is that is like merely the first 10% of a startup. That is like, many people screw that up. They don't really they don't really acknowledge that. Some people don't even acknowledge that even if they take the leap, they're automatically, oh no, I need to switch at the first very second, the very minute, the very hour, sometimes the very day. They switch and they back up. And for you've spearheaded it.
Yeah.
And here you are having conversation with the Rajiv show, which makes it, a treat for me, as an honorary treat for me to have the conversation and for you to
Thank
share
you
your
very much.
story. Very, very powerful, brother. I mean, this I do not know what to add on to that, because I'm a believer. And for those who are tuning in, by the way, I hope you guys pay attention to the moments that you guys are taking for granted, and the moments, those things that when you overthink it. It's good to overthink. I mean, I have a different take on how overthinking is, but my main intention is, it's good to overthink unless it's a life or death situation, because of course you cannot
Yeah.
really but the life or death situation, you can't you need to overthink it when someone's giving you a deal and all that stuff. But yeah, I've deviated from the main point of overthinking. My philosophy of overthinking is, you want to change your life, you have to sit down. You have to sit down either with yourself, um, whoever it is that you believe in. It's a lot to do with understanding and confirming it, and being confident, saying that, okay, I'm gonna take this, and then this is gonna be my direction in life. And that's where you take it to the next level, the moment you move on from what you learned and what you've studied. And from what I've heard, yeah, throughout the beginning of the university life, my guest prepared. Am I right that you've prepared? So you've studied a lot of this. You've taken. Okay, that's not good. So you've had data. Although some of the data that you got was
Yeah.
a mere 10%, but you still, the fact that you have data that collects as experience, it changes the whole dynamic of learning. Okay, this is not what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. Granted that as you travel forward,
Yeah.
you already know, okay, if someone's asking for your advice, okay, that's not the thing, look at what I'm doing, or look at what this guy is doing, my friend is doing, so that's how I understand
Mhm.
the story. It's very, very powerful, and I believe that you're gonna take your business to the next level, and I'm sure you're already planning for the next level. And I have a I kind of have this feeling that I'm having a conversation with a person who's sitting in front of himself as a futuristic, already there with the cash money, the cash money and
Yeah.
everything, the legendary status, and the finest three-piece suits and everything, so yeah, it's really, I'm sure power of visualization here in this conversation is very, very, very true to saying. And if for those who are listening, if that is not your
It
thing, I
is.
mean, yeah, if it's not your thing, you can always find what works for you in terms of how you believe and how you push yourself to the next level, which is really, really interesting. Interesting to say the least, because that's my only code. That's my signature word. Trying to think of another word to outsmart myself,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can't really.
I'd recommend it. I'd recommend it. I think it's everyone. I think we all use, like people say, whatever situation you're currently in is due to visualization.
Yeah,
Whether you're consciously visualizing the future or unconsciously visualizing the future, you are doing it. It's just a human nature. Innately, we do it. We imagine. You
yes,
can't, when you have thoughts, you see it visually. Some people see it visually anyway, but most of the time you can imagine things in your mind, and your thoughts that you have essentially is visualization. The things you repeat in your head, that is visualization. It's just, if you see visualization as basically just data that you feed your brain
yeah,
to try to create your surroundings. So if you're someone who thinks a certain way about, oh, I'm a very quiet guy, I don't really like going out, then
yeah,
you are a very quiet guy, you don't like going out. When you have
yeah,
those thoughts, there's a visual image of who you are in your head,
yeah,
and that's subconscious. So you're subconsciously doing it unaware, that because you're thinking, oh, I'm a quiet guy,
yeah,
I'm not very social, that then becomes your reality, because that's the image you're seeing of yourself, and the image you see of yourself is what you project out of who you are, if that makes any sense. So
yeah, yeah,
the difference between the visualization that we're talking about now is just a lot more conscious visualization, asking yourself, okay, right now I feel like I'm a quiet guy, but can I visualize myself as a as an extrovert, as someone who is a lot louder, someone who is a lot more confident, someone who can speak to girls without any issue. And if you feel like that,
yeah,
or if you can see that in your mind, it can be a reality. There's a saying where it's like, anything you can perceive, you can
yeah,
achieve, or if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hands. And I don't. People saying visualization and manifestation is like incorrect. You're factually incorrect, if that makes any sense, because
yeah,
factually speaking, everything that we have outside of us came from inside of us. So
mm,
the computer you have, the phones you have, the headphone you're wearing, the
yeah,
speakers you might be listening to this through, all of that started in someone's mind as a visualization.
yeah,
When someone creates a house, an architect has that in their mind first. The architect thinks about it first, then they think, what's the plan, how do I get there? They map it out, they do the math, they do the calculations, what material,
yeah,
and they have that. It begins initially in their mind, imagined, then it gets put on paper, and then you have someone create that. The
mm,
same way an architect can produce something from his mind to reality, same goes with a designer, an interior designer, a graphic designer, and a podcast designer. It
yeah,
all starts in someone's mind first, and it's all visualized first. So just know that it's constantly a thing that happens. It's just, you have
yeah.
to just take conscious control of it and choose the narrative you want to create.
True, true. I agree 100%, 110%, 200. It's like a bidding war now. To a million percent. If there's, I agree. But the main point is I agree. And to add to the concept of visualization, I hope
Yeah.
that you're not just taking this as a one piece of the cake, because visualization is a certain percentage of the entire thing. You got hard work, which was hopefully my guest and I would have a conversation about that, and we'd have a season about that. We'll talk about that, and it's going to be interesting. But my
Mm.
main point that I'm trying to carry on here is visualization. Just because you visualize it, that makes you visionary. No, 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 no. That's just, like I said, that's just a small percentage of the work that you put into the bigger picture. Of course, you got hard work, you got consistency, you got all these variables into play, and the the one key element for me personally, and I'm sure my guests would agree, is um, from what we've mentioned in our gym life, is that we've had this obsession that is like killer. If you have the obsession, you don't need motivational videos saying you can do it, buddy, you can climb up that mountain. You don't need any of that stuff. You got the visualization, and you got the obsessiveness that, okay, this is where I want to go. This is the thing. I want to be a content creator. I'm gonna invest into camera, podcasting, invest whatever with money you have, and then develop and develop. And that obsessiveness, so that obsessiveness is not just making a video and just getting it out. You gotta show how thing is. If you're having a conversation with yourself, which I do recommend, is that, you know, you gotta be obsessed, and you gotta have that Michael Jordan, Tiger Wood obsession with the thing, because the standard, like my guest
Mhm.
said, the standard that you're living is thing. And for me, for those who don't know, this Let's Talk series has been one of my biggest obsession, and this is perfect because of the conversation about visualization. This Let's Talk series is one of my super duper mega projects that I've envisioned in the span of 2020. And my obsession with the numbers now is like, I really want to target 65. And as of now, in our conversation, I'm sure my guest is already up to the number 58, and we're still pushing. I mean, through the entire year of 2022, 2021, I've had the obsession, and I've never skipped a beat. I am not bragging. So if you guys mistake this idea for me bragging, it's up to you. But for me, I have been obsessed. I know who I wanted as my 50th guest. I knew who I wanted as my first guest. I knew who the people I wanted to, and of course, I also knew my guest was going to be a part of this conversation, because he reached out to me and we just struck up a conversation. And that's the main point of visualization, and being grateful for where you are. Also, that's also one more thing. Like I said, no matter what you believe in life, you do you. But in terms of the things that you apply in your life, visualization and obsession, those are, to me personally, I gotta ask you, pal, what is your thoughts? Visualization, obsession, what are your elements that gets you going?
I think both. I think visualization and obsession play into each other. I think if you're obsessed, you're going to visualize naturally, and I
Yeah.
think if you visualize, you become obsessed. So it's as a feedback loop. You start doing something, you obsess over it, and because whenever you're not working on that thing, you're visualizing yourself working on that thing. Does that make sense? So when
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
so for example, when I was at the gym, I was obsessed about the gym. I was obsessed about working really hard. Then when I wasn't at the gym, I was visualizing myself working out, being that person. So it's almost like this weird loop that occurs naturally where you're when you're away from this thing for whatever it is for you. Maybe it's music, maybe it's your art, maybe it's fashion, but whatever it is, you know what's pulling you there because you keep visualizing yourself doing that thing. So if you're like a musician and you keep visualizing yourself in stage playing the guitar, but you're just in a bus somewhere,
Yeah.
then that creates the obsession. Then you start playing, you start getting better,
Yeah.
and then because you start playing, start getting better, you can visualize what that's like even better. So then you become more obsessed, and you so again, I think it's a feedback loop. I think you can't if they come as a pair. Basically, they come as a pair.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if we're gonna talk about self-improvement, pal, I have a feeling we need to have a season for my thing, and I hope you're gonna come back to the Rajiv show. I really want to make that happen now that you've spoken to me about visualization. I'd hope you come back and we talk we
Yeah.
in depth. We dissect every single philosophy or every single elements, and
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
thing.
I like that.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, to wrap up this conversation, I'm sure a lot of us would love. I mean, some of my guests or everybody listening to my podcast would love to connect with you via social media. How would they find you on social media, pal?
So I'm not active. Basically, the only platform that I'm on is Facebook groups, and that's specifically for my community podcasting, podcast marketing made simple. So that if you're a podcaster or someone who's interested in podcasting and you want to just find out, some simple, effective strategies that you can take action on each day to grow your podcast, then that's where you can find me. Funny enough, the thing I mentioned about, whole mental real estate, I gave up Instagram, Twitter, for that reason, because it took us too much mental space and it was too much of a distraction. So that's the place I'm currently at, which is Facebook.
Interesting.
And that's that podcast market made simple.
Interesting. I love this conversation, guys. I love this conversation. I love it when my guest really takes over. It's like this conversation, they take over and I'm just the one serving tea in the corner. And I gotta admit it, I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot. I want to thank you, pal, for being a part of this conversation. Like I said earlier, I really want to have you back in this conversation season. Let's talk about seasons. Because probably by the time I'm done with my season 4, I'm probably dried with ideas, or I probably have some few more in the tank.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to make a season with you, just you and I debating over certain philosophies and stuff like that. Because I'm a deep thinker, and I really love to connect with people in terms of thinking and whatnot. And this is like heaven to me. I'm in heaven, to be honest. But this is
so am I, man. I enjoy this. It's rare that you find people who think the same way. Not think the same way, but have the same thought patterns in terms of how they like to think. So I like to think about things deeply, and I've got loads of stories of just like how this side of my life occurred, and I'll go through phases of it. I don't know if the same with you, and I want to keep this very brief, but I'll go through phases of being super, super deep thinking, and then go through phases of being, more with it, more connected to the real world. And then I'll go through phases where I'm in my imagination and a bit detached from reality, where like I'm seeing things in a weird way, and I have a frustration with the world that no one's acknowledging the fact that we are in a realm that no one really, just some crazy, philosophical thoughts that just
looks like you're already going there.
That to me, to me seems ludicrous that people aren't speaking about it like at every moment of every day. But I'm sure you have those thoughts where you're like, how are people just not the fact that like life basically like
I have a feeling it's like you're already slowly I do agree with you.
I don't want to get deep into man, so
awesome. I want to thank you again, pal. I want to thank you for this wonderful conversation, pal. From the bottom of my heart, I'm glad that I've connected with you, and I still want to connect with you even further, and probably take who knows, we'll do business soon, and anything we can do is like, because you and I connected instantly in this conversation. And I want to say thank you so much on behalf of the Rajiv show of sharing your story. And you have my undying respect as a person, as a personality, as human. I'm proud of you, pal. And and for those who are tuning in, connect with this legend, connect with him, find him. I'll leave the links in the description. You could go find him, say hi to him. He won't beat you up. He says he's big, but he's big at heart as well. So just connect with him. He won't bite your head off.
Thank you. I just want to say to you as well, mate, like thank you. And to the audience listening, support this guy, because he's doing amazing stuff. His heart's in the right place, and I'm just excited to see where you take things. And of course, I'm sure I've talked about what we can do for your show and how we can make sure that you get into where you need to be, because you're doing amazing things, bud.
Thank you. Cheers, pal. Cheers. Thank you so much. And with that in mind, cheers, folks. And I will see you in the next episode.